The point of this is to call out the mistakes and fallacies that we are perpetuating in our society and how they are affecting the graduates we are releasing into the community and the people we are accepting in the corporate and employment world, and how we are shaping the future of this country. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Njeri. Employment is such a big problem in this country, Kenya. And recently, NTV shared a documentary called Degree of Doubt, where they featured a few people who are unemployed or underemployed, and they highlighted their plight, but also shared a few interesting perspectives on the issue of unemployment in the country. I will be reacting to that video, so if you're interested in reaction videos, be sure to stick around and hit the like button.
My name is Kennedy Singwe. I'm a graduate of Egerton University. I did manufacturing engineering and technology from the year 2006 and I graduated in 2011. I always receive notifications on email every day. I apply for these jobs. I've gone for several interviews, but I've never really gotten positive feedback. So I decided that maybe somehow my education is not sufficient. So I got a chance, scholarship to study in China. I did renewable energy, that is clean combustion technologies for rural areas in developing countries. So I've added that certificate to my collection of certificates, but I've not been able to get a job after China.
So the first candidate they featured, or rather the first interviewee, is Kennedy, a student of engineering, and he has a master's from China in combustible energy and is currently working construction jobs, which first highlights how underemployed he is. This is somebody who has a master's in renewable energy in a world where we're constantly looking towards renewable energy, where there's a lot of startups in the sector, where there's a lot of investment in the sector from both for-profit investors and grants. So this is just a clear picture of the underemployment that he's going through currently.
I sometimes look back and I wish that I had done something else like law or medicine, because I had passed in my high school, and because I see there seems to be opportunities in those areas, but sometimes I want to go back to university, start all over again and see maybe another opportunity will come up.
He says something very important, which is he wishes he'd done something different like law or medicine, because he seems there's opportunities there. When you look at it from an outside perspective, it might seem that way. But then you remember that doctors have been striking because of salaries. A lot of doctors are complaining that the government is hiring doctors from other countries. So there's no guarantee that that is the solution. And also, you can tell that from his narrative, he's perpetuating an ideology that we believe very strongly in this country, which is that if you go to university and you perform a certain way, then it will directly lead to a job. So that when that does not happen, it creates a disconnect where you're like, maybe I should have done something different, maybe I'm the one who's on the wrong, or that sort of thing. When the reality is, in today's world, a university degree does not guarantee an entry into any particular field. And it's neither right or wrong, it's just the way that the world is set up currently. There are people who now today value experience more than education. There are people who still value education over experience. There are people who will ask for both, which now you will have to gain over time. So he's really in a hard position. Let's see what else he's done.
From my village, people always looked up to me. I would go to schools, I would go to rallies, I would go to churches, speak to students, encourage them to pursue an higher education. When I go to the village, they call me an engineer, but they can't see anything in this engineer. It's just a name that I have.
He says something very interesting. Two things actually. One is that he used to go to schools to mentor other students and young people in his community, encouraging them to pursue higher education, which again is pushing the narrative that education is a sure way for you to succeed or go to a certain level in life. Secondly, he says that when he goes to the village, people call him engineer, but they don't see an engineer. I will react to that shortly. Another thing, he says that he scored very highly. So he had an A in primary school, an A in secondary school. And there's the thing we are taught within schools is that if you pass, you will be rewarded with a career, you will be rewarded with a degree, and then once you get a degree, you'll be rewarded with a high-paying career. So it's like you're being set up to succeed faster and in a more sure way than others, which is not the reality. And we need to stop preaching this as the reality to young people, and especially to students, and more so to students in rural and poor communities, because they're the ones who are pushed towards this narrative, and so they have this expectation. I'm not saying that we don't encourage them to work hard in schools, but we should not give them the surety that their performance in school is directly related to who or what they will be able to do after graduating in school. Now, coming back to the last point that he shared, where he said, in my village people see an engineer, but they call me an engineer, but they don't see an engineer. Now, I will turn against him for a second here and say a few things. One is, he is an engineer. He's somebody who studied renewable energy. So the only way for people to see the engineer in him is for him to practice. And based on what he's shared and what I'm picking from the masters he did in renewable and combustible energy, I think he might be able to work in an industry, for example, setting up biogas systems or solar systems, because those are the main renewable energies that are found in this country. So if he's working at a construction site, is it possible for him to maybe request the foreman or the owner of the construction and say, see, I have an engineering, there's a requirement by this regulation or that regulation to have renewable energy in buildings, for example, for heating, hot water heating systems. Can I help with that? Or instead of us setting up a building and running a normal sewage system, can we have a biodigester system? Because if somebody is putting up a construction and is paying this many people to do this much work, they probably would have a budget for that. And even if not in this particular construction job he's working, if he starts putting out the word there, then he might be able to access those kinds of job. Alternatively, if people in his community and his village know he's an engineer, has he presented himself as somebody who would be able to solve some of the problems in his community that would be solved with engineering? So for example, if there's a secondary school or a primary school within his community, can he help them set up a biodigester system? Can he help them set up a solar system? Because if people already have looked up to him previously, if they've allowed him to sort of go to schools and speak about his experiences, then it shows that he's somebody who's trusted, and he's somebody who they can actually trust to give a job or something of the sort. Because for him to continue looking for a job, there's no guarantee he will get a job.
I did my degree and finished in April 2012, and I decided to go back for my master's. I did a master's in banking and finance at Mo University, and later on I decided to go back and do my PhD, which I did in January 2015. I did my coursework, that is a PhD in business administration, finance option, and I finished my coursework. So at the moment I'm working for my thesis, mostly in a bank. I worked for a period of 4 years, and then because of the demands of the job, I resigned from the bank in mid-2017. From there, because I still have a family to take care of, I have bills to pay. So what I did, I decided to join the taxi business so that at least I can make some money. That is what I've been doing for the last almost 4 years now. Still having hope that one day I'll still get a job and work somewhere.
So the second candidate is currently doing his PhD thesis. So he's already done his coursework, so has completed his undergrad and also his master's. It's interesting because he's in a bit of a different situation. So one, he's been employed before, so he's not had as tough luck as the first candidate. And secondly, he's currently working in the taxi business. So the fact that he's looking to be employed, I'm not really sure why he's looking to be employed, because the taxi business has its advantages and disadvantages. I'm thinking maybe his motivation might be financial, or more an opportunity to apply the knowledge that he's gained, or a combination of both. So this is a bit different, and it might also point to, and this is just a hypothesis, it might point to the fact that our society validates academic pursuit through employment. So if I have gone to a certain level academically, then I must be employed. And if I cannot get to that level, then I can become an entrepreneur or become self-employed. Because if he already has some way of making money, then and the pursuit is mainly financial or because of intellectual pursuit, I'm not sure why he's featured, or maybe he feels underemployed, which could be a problem, just like the first candidate, not as grossly underemployed as he is, but still underemployed.
Working so hard, getting a first class honors, no job, I just regret it. I thought I would get a direct ticket of working in an office, but it was all just a fantasy. Farming, that is the main thing I'm doing currently, and I'm not happy about it. That is not what I like.
That candidate highlighted in this documentary is from Karatina University, and he says that he graduated with a first class honors, and he was told that would guarantee him employment. Again, that is a lie. We need to stop perpetuating that lie. And now he's frustrated, and you can tell from the way he speaks, there's a lot of pain and a lot of anger, which is directed at a system that promised him something, and he did his part. He studied hard, he was able to finish his coursework. To be able to graduate with a first class honors is not an easy feat, and now he's unemployed. And he even complains that he once went to an interview and was told that they would not employ him because he was overqualified, which again is something that is used to disqualify graduates from jobs. And it's not necessarily because they don't want graduates in their jobs, but some organizations will do that to minimize competition within the organization, or sometimes because they don't want the responsibility of having to pay graduates the full rate that they would.
And I feel like I should have been given the money to start something else.
So he currently is a farmer and he does not like it, but that is what he's doing. But earlier he said that instead of the money that was paid for his university education, he would have been given that money to start a business. So I would be interested, is he saying that because he didn't get a job or he didn't work out as how he wanted, or he really does believe that he would have started a business? Because farming is a viable business, especially if you have access to maybe family land, if you have access to a few animals or a few crops within the home that you can start with. It does require a lot of investment if you have zero resources, but if you have a few resources, you can work them to sort of sustain yourself and even thrive within that sector. So as somebody who studied microbiology, maybe microbiology is not necessarily related to animal farming or that sort of thing, but there are a few things that he could learn from his farming that he can apply in a microbiology career, or something that he learned in his microbiology career that he could apply to his current farming to succeed.
When people see me getting my djembe and going to the farm, they just laugh, because they say I wasted my 4 years in school, then I'm just like them.
Again, just like the previous individual, he says that when people see him getting his djembe to go to the farm, they laugh at him. So does he hate farming because of such perceptions, or because it really does not sustain him? Because if then his degree was supposed to meet expectations of people around him, there's nothing he will ever do that will fulfill their expectations. And if we continue putting our expectations on young people and saying farming is for this kind of people and people with degrees shouldn't do this kind of work, then we're going to continue having a problem of people being unemployed because they're not willing to get down and dirty. Because farming is really a viable venture. Not for him if he doesn't want to do it, but if we didn't put that wrong perception around farming, if our teachers didn't tell us you're going to end up like a farmer just like your mother or like your father when they were really making fun of us, then maybe we would have a different perception around farming.
Then I'm just like them.
And then he says, I am just like them. Let's retake that. I am just like them. Like them who? Because just saying he's just like them then means that a degree makes him different, and it doesn't seem like it's different in the best possible way. So when he says he's just like them, because a degree doesn't make you different from other people. It might give you access to opportunities and knowledge, but it really is not a differentiator. When it all comes to light, even if we were all to access opportunities, our progress and our success is not bound to the degrees we have or the academic achievements that we have. It boils down to our perceptions and how we are able to explore opportunities around us and how much we are willing to make use of the little that we have.
Valentine Ochieng, 29 years old now, and went through Moi University in civil aviation management. I had some small savings. That was about 500 shillings. I had to start some banana business. Then after that, I got another job. That is the teaching job now, which I did for some time. Then I still had the business mind because I've been frustrated all along. I get a job, it goes out of hand. I start another one, it gets out of hand. So I thought to myself that I can start something that at least I can do for long term. I also thought that what I have at hand, apart from just doing that business of bananas, I know how to make samosas.
I like the last story for a couple of reasons. One is, just like the previous stories, he's also unemployed in the traditional way of unemployment. But he's been able to make do with what he has to sort of identify different opportunities. So you will see that he sells samosas, which I think helps with the more immediate cash. And then he also works as a tutor online. So he's able to help students. He didn't specify whether it's locally or internationally, but he's able to tutor students in different subjects that he is good at, which is a viable freelancing job, and he's been able to explore that. And I mean, it's an unfair position to be put in as a graduate where you want to pursue a career in a specific field, but because there's not enough opportunities in that field, you're being pushed to sort of look for freelancing jobs or alternatives. But it also shows that he's resilient and he's willing to sort of explore what is available and find what he sticks. Sometimes this might lead to something that is more substantial, and he might find he enjoys this and actually choose it as a forever career. Sometimes it just may be temporary before he finds a position in whatever he's always wanted to do. I have a separate video where I speak about survival jobs and hustles. You can check that out and learn more about what that means. So looking at the stories that we've viewed today and the stories that have been shared, I have a few thoughts, but I want to preface this by saying I'm empathetic to the plight of the individuals who've chosen to share their stories. But by sharing their stories, they're exposing a few problems we have within our society. One is we're preparing people for jobs and not necessarily for work. What do I mean by this? If you have a microbiology degree, this means that you have a better understanding of biology. going back to basic definition of biology, it's the study of animal and plants. So it means that if you have studied microbiology, you have studied or you have a better understanding of how animals and plants interact depending on your emphasis. So if you're working with animals, if you're working as a farmer, you have an opportunity to directly apply your knowledge on the ground. But because we are so focused on the idea of a job, because this is the narrative that we've pushed within our society, this individual does not see how his academic education applies to something that he's doing. Because what is the difference between studying microbiology, let's say for example working in an organization that does research in animal husbandry or animal feeds, and being the person who's actually feeding the animals? Because if you have the animals within your home, let's say you have 10 goats and you decide, I will put 2 goats away and experiment with them, and take something that you learned in school about a plant that is available within your local community, and you say, okay, they say this plant can do this to this animal. What if I take it and feed it to my 2 goats and see how they produce or how they grow in comparison to other goats? You can do that within your farm without necessarily having access to the lab and the research resources that are needed. But because we are so sold to the idea of a job, you want to do that same thing, but within the confines of a job, within the confines of a career that is more glorious, that is more admirable. And it's not just for that particular case. Like the individual who owns a taxi business, he even says, I own a taxi business, I work in the taxi business. This is somebody who already has a business. This is somebody who already is a self-starter, somebody who's already progressing in a particular field. Now, for him to sit and say, I want to go back to employment, or I want to be in employment because of my academic excellence, then it's a bigger issue. Because if he's in the taxi business, he already has an entry point into a field that is very lucrative, into a field that a lot of people are trying to get into. If he can apply the knowledge that he has learned from his academic pursuits and use it in his taxi business to scale it, to diversify, to innovate, whatever way that he can apply it. But this same person wants to go into employment and maybe go into a company like maybe Uber or Taxify or Bolt, then if I was the owner of such a company, why would I employ you if you've been on the ground for 5-7 years, but you've not done anything in your personal capacity? And now you want to tell me that if you give me a salary and a specific number of working hours, I'll be able to do something for you. What value will you be bringing to such an employer? Because the thing is, if we don't challenge this narrative, if we continue complaining and saying there's not enough employment, but we are not using the knowledge and resources we already have in the setting that we are already in, and we are pursuing jobs and not necessarily opportunities, or not necessarily a place where we can create value, we just want the prestige of I'm employed, I have a job, then we really are not going to move forward. We are going to continue to have this problem. We're going to continue having angry graduates who are going to continue complaining without necessarily creating a solution. And I know it's a complex issue. There are other issues that we might discuss later, but in the very moment now, since our government is not doing anything about it, if we ourselves don't start challenging these narratives we've been pushed, and the current narrative is working for the people who are taking advantage of these graduates, then it works, then it continues to prosper. And if it continues to prosper, then what is the point of us even highlighting these stories if we are not going to call out the lies that we are perpetuating and continue to call out the mistakes that we are seeing new graduates making, and continuing to push the narrative of unemployment where, really, we're not pursuing employment for the sake of building our community, but we are pursuing employment for the sake of prestige and having a certain narrative of I am employed, I have a job, I am an engineer, I am a biologist, I am this person, I am that person. If you are a biologist then, and you're working around animals and you can't apply that knowledge there, why would you want to be employed by somebody who is doing the same thing but in a different capacity, or the same animals but with a few more resources? You have to start with the little that you have, and then now if you start doing something and then it doesn't proceed, then we will address that problem when we get there, which is a problem we have, but we have to start from the root of the problem. With that being said, the point is not to shame or to make certain individuals look a certain way. The point of this is to call out the mistakes and fallacies that we are perpetrating in our society, and how they are affecting the graduates we are releasing into the community and the people we are accepting in the corporate and employment world, and how we are shaping the future of this country. If you liked this video, I know it was not in my normal style, but if you liked it, please hit the like button, comment below and tell me what your experience has been, what you think about what has been shared, and what has your experience been like if you're a graduate, if you're not a graduate. Until next time, bye bye, stay safe.